Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video lecture I shall continue discussing the importance of Act 3 of the famous play A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. In my previous lecture on Act 3 we learned that Torvald Helmer comes to know about Nora's big secret and how he considers the entire matter to be very, very ugly. And now we shall see how the revelation of this big secret of Nora leads to her transformation as a woman. Not only that, we shall find that how it leads to her awakening from her previously unexamined domestic life, because earlier she never got the opportunity to examine the reality of her life, the reality of her marital life, as well as the reality of her position as a woman in her in their marital life. So now we shall see how this incident, which is the most important incident in Act 3, leads to Nora's awakening. So now we find that after the truth gets revealed to Torvald, and Nora tries to explain herself, saying that it was out of her love for him that she did that, that is considered, whatever Nora did, that is taken to be an excuse on her part to defend herself. So we find that Torvald is so insensitive that he doesn't take into account Nora's love for him. Instead, he says that she is simply making an excuse. And we also find that Nora still continues, to be in the same illusory world where she believes that Torvald would, come forward and take the entire blame on himself and try to protect her. Instead, after having come to know this secret, we find that how he immediately, calls her a hypocrite, a liar, and above all, a criminal. And here we find how Nora gets disillusioned. So long she has been living, as I always say, she has been always, living in her own make-believe world where she believed that her marriage is perfectly fine, her husband is terribly in love with her, and he's the first person who would do anything for her, who is always ready to sacrifice his love, he sacrifice himself for her. But here, for the first time, we find Nora understanding the actual reality of her situation, because she never ever imagined in the wildest of her dreams that after the revelation of a secret, Torvald's true color would come to the surface. His true nature would come to the surface, and immediately he demands an explanation from her for the act that she has committed. And the way Torvald, reacts to the letter that he receives from Krogstad, it suggests that he has, instantly after receiving the letter, he has lost all his faith and love and respect for her. And at the same time, he exhibits an unforgiving attitude, which again shows the superficiality of their relationship. Because if he had been, truly in love with her, at least he would have made an attempt, he would have tried, to listen to her version of the story. But he doesn't even bother, to pay any heed to what Nora has to say. Just as Nora has never been given, the permission to voice out her opinion, to be her true self. And so again we find that without any respect, without any regard for her feelings, how he once again refers to her father, saying that she has inherited all these qualities from her father, which means again that concept comes into play, that moral corruption, how moral corruption passes on to children from their parents. And then we find that after he receives this letter, this threatening letter from Krogstad, Torvald is only concerned about his own safety. And we find that Krogstad's reading of his character was absolutely right when he said that he would very easily give in to his pressures, he would very easily give in to his demands and listen to what he says, and then he would become the right hand of Torvald at the bank, and he's the one who will be ruling the bank. So here we find that he appears to be very self-absorbed, he appears to be very self-centered, okay, and although Nora is Torvald's wife, yet we find that Krogstad knows him much better than Nora. And here when we find that Nora tries to, she tries to say that she would commit suicide, she would put an end to her life, his reaction appears to be very harsh, because he says that even that is not going to help him. And that shows his self-centered reaction, because he says that now it is you that I have to thank for this, and when I have taken such good care of you all our married life. Okay, so now do you understand what you have done to me? So according to Torvald, Nora has turned out to be very, very irresponsible as a wife, and she is responsible for landing him in this situation, for landing him in this trouble where a man like Krogstad would have, upper hand over him, would have all the power over him, where he would just make him, be at his beck and call. And then a very horrifying statement that is made by Torvald is that as a representative of the 19th century, as well as a representative of the patriarchal society, we find Torvald gives more importance to appearance than reality. And that's why he tells Nora that on the outside everything would remain as it is. It would continue to appear as it was before. And now they would simply pretend, they would act like their husband and wife, while in reality there wouldn't be any emotional connection between them. And the most, as I said, the horrifying statement, that is made by Torvald here is that he no longer trusts her with the children. And it is more than shocking as well as, surprising that even after uttering so many harsh words, he still expects Nora to continue to be his obedient wife. And this is really striking. And not for once does he think about Nora. Like what impact would it would have upon her if Krogstad ever takes any wrong initiative and tries to cause any harm to her. So we find the extreme selfish side to Torvald's nature, where he appears to be completely self-centered, completely self-absorbed. And then immediately after this, a letter appears which is brought in by the maid, and although the letter is addressed to her, although the letter is meant for Nora, yet she is not allowed to read it. Instead, it is snatched away by Helmer and he reads it. So here we see that as a woman, Nora doesn't even have the right to privacy. She lacks that. And then Helmer goes through that letter. He reads a few lines, and after that, the first statement that he makes is, I am saved, Nora, I am saved. So this is actually a letter of apology from Krogstad, where he has not only apologized for his actions, but he has also returned the IOU, the declaration. So here we find that Torvald is so self-centered a man that he only considers his own situation in the light of his own fate. He is not at all bothered about Nora's fate. He is not at all bothered about Nora's feelings or what might happen to her in case Krogstad does anything wrong. It never occurred to him. And after this, it becomes more and more clear to Nora that he is only concerned. After this, he says, when Nora asks, and me? And then Helmer says, you too, of course, we are both saved, you as well as me. His luck has changed. He sends his regrets and apologies for what he has done. Well, that's the end of that. You must have got 3 terrible days of aid. So he learns from the letter that Nora has been, suffering for the last 3 days because she has been knowing the secret since Christmas Eve. And then Nora says that yes, it has not been very it hasn't been very comfortable for her. It has been really, really terrible for her. So here he forgives her, and the way he behaves as if he is doing, a great kindness to her by forgiving her. And he says that Nora must be surprised to see that her husband has forgiven her. Okay, so I forgive you everything. I know you did what you did because you loved me. So now he seems to realize that he is extremely loved by Nora, and that is why she committed that act. But when he received the letter for the first time from Krogstad, his reaction did not say so. Instead, her love was considered to be an excuse that she was putting up. And it is, we find this is, Torvalds another supposed desire where he says, where he says that, that I shall give you, you can lean on me, I shall give you all the advice that you need, and it wouldn't be proper for a man if I didn't find a woman doubly attractive for being so obviously helpless. So for a man like Torvald, a woman appears to be beautiful, a woman appears to be attractive if she is helpless. So he always wants a woman to be helpless so that he can exhibit his manhood. And now we find that Nora gets into her room and she changes and she takes off this fancy dress, which is very, very significant because here she is not only taking off the fancy costume that she wore at the Sternbock's party, but she is also taking off the superficiality of marriage. And then again we find that how she is considered as a property by Torvald because he says that I have forgiven you completely. And there is for a man this is something indescribably moving. So he takes it as a matter of pride for himself that he is in a position where he has to forgive his wife, which he has done from the depths of his heart, as if that he has, endowed her with a new life. And that reflects his chauvinistic attitude at the same time, and that she becomes in a way both his wife and at the same time his child. So for a man, for a typical, patriarchal man like Torvald, it is natural that Nora should always, it is very natural, it is very normal that Nora should always behave like a child in order to appease him. Nora should always, be that obedient wife and present herself as a lady, as a damsel in distress, so that he could come to her rescue every time and claim how manly he is, how strong he is as a man. And one more thing we find here, that Torvald, would never allow Nora to be an autonomous individual. Okay, so we see that how he treats her as his property and child. And he feels that he has every right, to behave in this manner within a marriage. And then he also says that she doesn't have to bother at all, because she is going to take all the decisions for her from now on. And then when he finds that she is not in bed, and you have changed your things, he says, and Nora says to this, she replies to this, yes, Torvald, I have changed. Significant statement once again, because what Nora means to say is that she has really changed as a woman. And now for the first time we find Nora taking the lead, because she asks Torvald that now they should sit together and have a discussion, because she needs to tell him a lot of things. So for the first time in the play we find the couple sitting together to have a serious discussion. And then this frightens Helmer, and he says that, Nora, I don't understand you. And she says, yes, exactly. You don't understand me. In fact, I have never understood you either until tonight, by which she implies that he is not the man she expected him to be. Torvald now appears to be a complete stranger to Nora, and here we find, as I said, Nora takes the lead in the conversation, and she simply demands Torvald to respect him as his equal and not to interrupt, in the conversation. And because she says that they need to discuss several things frankly. And Nora says that since their courtship, okay, and they have been since their marriage, they have been married for 8 long years, and she says that they never discussed anything serious like this. They never sat like this before together in order to have a serious discussion. And to this, Helmer says that he never wanted to bother her, he never wanted to worry her, because she couldn't help him. She couldn't help him with his problems. So he preferred not to, worry her. So Nora says that in these 8 years they have never ever discussed anything. Anything means any serious word about serious things. And why is it so? Because Nora was never considered, Nora was never taken seriously, and that is why he never thought of discussing anything seriously with her. So we find that according to Nora, she and Torvald, they never sat together before to have any serious discussion, and it is because Nora was never ever taken seriously by Torvald. And then this sudden, this Nora's sudden insight into her relationship is really surprising, because now she accuses her husband as well as her father, saying that both of them have wronged her. And why does she say so? She says that you two never loved me. You only thought now nice it was to be in love with me. So you two people never truly loved me. Okay, it was your thought that you loved me, and you were in love with this thought. So what she means to say is that if these 2 men in her life had truly loved her, then they would have definitely allowed her to be her individual self. So he's like her father, treated her as a doll. And here we shall find how significant that title is. According to Nora, when she was in her parental home, she was always, guided, she was always instructed by her father. She was treated like a doll by her father. And when she came to Torvald's house after their marriage, she was again treated by Torvald as a doll, having no feelings, no emotions, having no say at all. So she says, just as my children are like dolls to me, I played with them, you used to do the same thing with me. Even you used to play with me, treating me like a doll, devoid of feelings, devoid of emotions. So in turn, just as my children, they found it fun and they had immense fun when I played with them. This has been our marriage, Torvald. So here the actual truth of their marriage gets revealed. And it is not that Torvald does not agree with what Nora says. He agrees, but then he can never, think beyond the accepted social norms. And so he says that playtime is over now. So now the time has come for the lessons. And what he thinks is that it is Nora who requires lessons. Never for once does he think that it is he who requires lessons, who needs lessons, because it was the prevalent notion of the time, and this was considered to be healthy and normal by the society of the time, that if a mistake is committed by a woman, she needs to get some lesson, because men can never commit any mistake. So after this, Nora says that, if you think that I need to be educated, or I need a lesson, or as well as my children need a lesson, then just now you said few minutes back that you no longer trust me with the children, that you couldn't trust me with that job. So Helmer says that he said that in the heat of the moment, in the spur of the moment. But now Nora says that no. Now here it's very interesting to note that whatever is said by Torvald, Nora does not retaliate. Instead, she accepts everything that is said by Torvald and says that yes, it is true. Now the time has come when she needs to educate herself, and he cannot help her with that. She needs to explore herself, and in order to do that, she needs to be independent. She needs to be independent in order to explore her true self, in order to realize what she wants in life, in order to understand herself. So for Nora, now is the time to educate herself, and so she says that in order to do that, she must encounter the outside world all alone and be independent, and that's why she has decided that she cannot live with Torvald any longer. She is going to leave him. And at the same time, she says that she'll be taking only her belongings with her, those belongings, those things that she had brought with her from her parents' house. And she doesn't even need anything from Torvald, neither now nor later. So that shows, a very drastic transformation in Nora. It is this disillusionment with her marriage. It is this disillusionment with her impression that she so long held, about Torvald, that finally disillusions her and makes her realize the reality of her marriage and the reality of her position in this wedlock. And here a question arises as to which is more important to Nora. Is it her duty as a wife, as a mother? And according to Torvald, because Torvald, as I said, being a representative of the patriarchal society, he considers, women to be wives and mothers before they are even people. And according to him, Nora's primary duty or her primary responsibility is towards her children and towards her husband. But Nora says, that is no concern of mine any longer. All I know is that this is necessary for me. So now for the first time we find Nora overcoming the idea, of a duty to others, overcoming the idea, that as a woman, that her first or foremost duty is to others, and now she begins to focus on herself. And she also tells Torvald that she is going to return to her own home. Why? Because her own home is symbolizes freedom for her, and also it indicates her unmarried status. So as a woman there, so if she goes to live in her parents' home, in her father's place, so it would help her afford more freedom than living here with Torvald. And then Nora says that I have another duty equally sacred. So now for Nora, her only duty and the most sacred duty is to her own self. And Helmer replies, first and foremost, you are a wife and mother. Why? Because this was the accepted notion of the time, that a woman's foremost duty, primary concern should be her husband and her daughter. And now Nora begins to, say something to justify herself, to justify her decision, and to justify her belief that her foremost duty is towards herself. She says that I don't believe that anymore, and now I believe that the first and foremost thing is that I am an individual, just as much as you are. For the first time, we find Nora asserting her individuality as a woman, which she was always deprived of, or let's say which was always denied to her, because we find that since the very beginning of the play we found that Nora was never allowed to assert her individuality. Instead, she behaved like a pet, she behaved like a child, she behaved the way her husband wanted her to behave in order to please him all the time. So she says that I am no longer satisfied and I am no longer bothered what people say or what is said in books, because now I have to think for myself and I have to think things out for myself and make everything clear to me. And when she is asked whether she has any religion, morality or not, this was really groundbreaking during that period when a statement like that was made by a woman, where she says that morality is relative. And this was really radical, because it put forth a very modern view of religion. And according to Nora, there are no fixed universal, moral rules or laws as such. So after this, Nora says that now she wants to know whether she is right or society is right, because she has learned that her ideas are, totally different from Torvald's. Even the ideas are different from what is held by society. So now she takes this duty upon herself in order to, find out as to who is right, whether she is right or society is right, because she has always believed that it is the duty, of a wife to protect her husband, and it is the duty of a daughter, to take care of her sick father. But she was told that social laws, societal laws, they never take into concern all this. So here, through this, we find how societal norms and societal laws are criticized by Ibsen. And so when she's told by Helmer that she's just talking like a child, okay, and she understands nothing about the society she lives in. So Nora says that yes, certainly she doesn't know, but now she needs to know. And now she'll take the initiative to know, and she has to discover who is right, society or me. And then when Helmer says that she's completely out of her mind, she says that for the first time she feels so calm, so collected, and so composed. And here, we find that as far as Torvald is concerned, Torvald lacks the ability, to evaluate societal norms, societal laws critically. And compared to him, Nora appears to be more wise than him. While he appears to be naive and quite shallow, ignorant in this regard, because he can never think beyond the societal norms, beyond the accepted social notions. And then Helmer says that then if you are ready, if you feel so composed, okay, having decided to leave me, then there could be only one explanation, okay, and that then only one explanation is possible. And Nora asks what it is, and he says that then maybe you don't love me anymore. Exactly is what Nora says. And this is another reason for leaving Torvald. Nora, can you say that? I'm desperately sorry, Torvald, because you have always been so kind to me. So Nora here again, keeping herself very calm, says that yes, Torvald, you have always been very kind to me, but I'm really sorry to say that I don't love you anymore. And is that also a calm, collected decision that you have made? And she says, yes, this is my final decision. So here when Nora says, when she talks about, when she talks about the righteousness of the societal norms, laws, and she also says that she no longer loves Torvald. She provides emotional as well as, an intellectual basis to her decision, which shows that her decision is a rational one. And here for the first time we find Helmer asking her as to what made her, not love him anymore. So how did he lose her affection? And to this Nora replies very strongly, very firmly, and she says that she was, all these years she was convinced that the miracle would happen. And what was that miracle? That if any crisis ever emerges in their relationship, anything goes wrong, then Torvald would be the first one to protect her. And she never ever thought that he would ever, give in to the demands or ever think of giving in to the pressures of a man like Krogstad. But that happened. And instead she felt that if Krogstad ever comes in and threatens him, he would simply tell him to go and tell the entire thing to the world if he feels like. But that did not happen. So she says, when after that I had exposed my own life to dishonor and shame. That's what Helmer says, that yes, so what? After I had exposed my own wife to dishonor and shame, when that was done, I was absolutely convinced you would come forward and take everything on yourself and say, I am the guilty one. So this was the greatest illusion that Nora ever nurtured in her life, that she felt Torvald would take the blame upon himself and sacrifice his honor for his love, for his loved one. And here he defends himself, saying that nobody would ever sacrifice, no man would ever, sacrifice his honor for the one he loves. And here we see the gender disparity, or the difference in the perspective of two genders. Nora is ready. Nora is always ready. In fact, she was always ready to sacrifice her everything for her marriage. She was ready to sacrifice everything for Torvald. But now to this, Nora says that hundreds and thousands of women have sacrificed their honor for the sake of their love, for the sake of their loved ones. And now Nora says that you neither talk, neither think like the man I would want to share the rest of my life with. Because when you got afraid for the first time, when you got the letter from Krogstad, you only thought about your own safety. You only thought about yourself as to what would happen to you. You never thought about me. And when the danger passed away, when you received the apology letter from Krogstad, immediately you began to act as if nothing had happened. And you thought everything was normal as before, and I was your little skylark again, meaning I was still your helpless, obedient wife, your little doll, just as before. And Torvald, that was the moment I realized that for 8 years I had been living with a stranger and I had borne him 3 children. Oh, I can't bear to think about it. I could tear myself to shreds. So, this very idea, after this very incident, when the true color of Torvald comes to the surface, Nora finds that, or rather Nora realizes that for the last 8 years, she has been living her life with a stranger, but that is no longer possible. So from this point onwards, we see that how her view of the world, changes, and she feels annoyed, she feels irritated that she has been a part of that life where she lived with a stranger. I can't bear to think about it. I could tear myself to shreds. So, that old life, that past life of Nora appears to be unfamiliar and also, causes much repulsion in her. So, she says that I'm no longer your wife, and that Helma says that it is almost impossible for him to think that she is leaving him. And she says that is all the more reason that she wants to leave, that she must be done, that she must leave. Because Torvald, could never expect that Nora would ever take such a decision in her life. Nora would ever think of being independent. Nora would ever think of living a life without taking any help, without taking any support from Torvald. So after this, since it was late night, she was asked to stay back for that night and leave the very next morning. But then she says, I can't spend the night in a strange man's room. Another, outstanding statement made by Nora. And then Nora says that now it's really funny here rather when Helmer says that couldn't we go on living here like brother and sister, because this is something absurd that he's proposing. And then Nora says that you know very well that would not last. And here shows that she is more realistic than Torvald. She has more knowledge of reality than Torvald. Goodbye, Torvald. I don't want to see the children. I know they are in better hands than me. Very ironic. As I am now, I can never be anything to them. So now she is confirmed that she can never be of, any help to their children. And then Helmer says that, but someday, Nora, someday, how should I know? I have no idea what I might turn out to be. So here we find from this conversation, Nora's attitude is, completely cold towards Torvald, and that reflects the, her intense convictions. And after this, a kind of unofficial divorce ceremony takes place, because Nora says that she knows that when a marriage comes to an end, the husband is freed of all responsibilities, and she is also doing the same. And now she not only returns her own wedding ring to Torvald, but also asks him to return her his wedding ring. So here it is a kind of, it symbolizes a kind of, unofficial divorce ceremony. People like Torvald, really were not fit at all for a marital life, because they didn't know how to respect a woman. But at the same time, the institution of marriage was also problematic, because this social institution of marriage demanded women to behave that way, demanded women to remain submissive, demanded women to give up their own happiness, to give up their own desires in order to appease the man, in order to the family members. And this is the traditional role that women played during the 19th century, because during that time period, women only existed. Women were only supposed to exist and not to be heard. Nobody paid any attention to their, to their needs. Nobody paid emotional needs. Nobody paid any attention to what they have to say, which means that they were completely, ignored as an individual. And then after this, we find that when her decision is respected by Torvald, because for the first time he finds her making decisions for herself. And finally, when Torvald says whether there is any, now Torvald begins to believe in miracle, but Nora no longer believes in any kind of miracle. So, may I write to you, Nora? No, never, I won't let you. But surely I can send you any letter. Nothing, nothing. Can't I help you if ever you need it? I said no, I don't accept things from strangers. So, it's not just that she, referred to him as a stranger, just for the sake of her, let's say for the sake of justifying herself. But when she uttered the word stranger, she literally meant it. And that's why she's so firm in her beliefs, she's so firm in her convictions, that she says that she would never accept anything from a stranger. Nora, can I never be anything more to you than a stranger? Torvald, only by a miracle of miracles, because now she knows that miracles never happen. And she no longer believes in miracles. That's what she says. And then Helmer says, what is that miracle, Nora? What is that miracle? Please name it, this miracle of miracles. And Nora says, I don't believe in miracles anymore. And that destroys hope for Torvald. And after this, Helmer says, but I will believe, name it, change to the point where, so do you think that if we change to a degree, like to some point, so what is that point to which we need to change ourselves so that we can be together once again? And Nora says, we have to change to the point where we could make a real marriage of our lives together. Real marriage. And what does she mean by a real marriage? Where there is equality in partnership, where the man respects his woman, gives her freedom, respects her individuality, and most importantly, never loses his faith in her. And with this, Nora says goodbye. She goes out through the hall door. Helmer sinks down on a chair near the door and covers his face with his hands. Nora, Nora. He rises and looks round. Empty, she's gone. The miracle of miracles. So now Torvald is completely shattered emotionally because he never thought that such a thing would ever happen in his life. Nora would dare to leave him. And then the heavy sound of a door being slammed is heard from below. This slamming of the door is also very significant because it not only slaps patriarchy, but this slamming of the door also brings Torvald's hope to an end, to a sudden end. And it also shatters the illusion of his marriage, of their marriage. So when Nora slams the door, the way she slams and the way the sound, the slamming of the door, the noise that is made by the slamming of the door by Nora, it clearly reflects that she's never going to look back. It is clearly a slap on patriarchy. It is also a slap on the social institution of marriage, which was just a tool to suppress women at that time, not letting them voice forth their opinion and not letting them to be their true self and assert their individuality. And with this, we come to the end of discussion of Act 3 of A Doll's House. I hope you find this lecture helpful. So if you like it, do subscribe to my channel, share it, and also do not forget to give your valuable comment in the section below, because that really counts, and that would also help me to improve on my work as well. Until then, stay tuned. Bye.